Welcome to Truth in Life Today with Congregation Adat Ariel, Jewish believers in Jesus and teachers of spiritual warfare. If you'd like to speak with us tonight, call 618-924-1851. And now, here's the lovely and talented producer Deb.
Welcome to the Truth in Life broadcast, where we do our best every week to bring you a biblical perspective on the things we see going on around us and the headlines around the world in the same fashion established for this program by Rabbi Moshe Lori. I am producer Deb. I want to remind you, 7 p.m. Central Time every Thursday, that's when we're coming to you. So if you're watching us live on Rumble, great. I think we go on live on YouTube as well. But if you can't catch us at this time, then you can always go back to those places and watch us again. Also, in about, 45 minutes or so, I believe that President Trump, is going to address the nation. So if you are more interested in what he has to say and you dump out at 8 o'clock, I understand. But just remember that our show does post on Rumble and on YouTube. So you can go back and see if you, like I said, if you want to go watch our president, and who wouldn't? He's a very entertaining guy, right? But I think he has some very important things to say this evening. Just come back and join us here. And
we are on Twitch as well.
Yes.
So for those of you who don't have access to YouTube, and if you've got Twitch, because it's a free platform, we're there as well.
Yes, we are. But it doesn't post there, does it?
It doesn't post there. You can't look at it later. Once, for whatever reason, once I kick it out of my computer, YouTube and Rumble keeps the catalog on file in those platforms. Twitch, it does not. So, you can watch it live on Twitch, but yeah, if you want to watch it later on, it'll have to be on YouTube and Rumble.
Yeah, most people have YouTube.
Yeah.
May not have Rumble yet, but Rumble's cool.
Yeah.
It's a good platform. I enjoy it as well. Lots of people on there, interesting folks as well.
It's your conservatives YouTube, as
Yes.
Rumble is, yes.
Right. I am sitting here solo tonight. If you didn't have a chance to tune into the Shabbat service last Friday when we made the announcement, Richard's lovely wife, Nancy, went into the arms of her on Friday morning, somewhere around 11:30 in the morning. So if you've been praying for Richard and Nancy, he's very, very grateful for that. Now, just what we need to do is keep Richard uplifted, and as he navigates this new normal. He's now part of the club that myself and Martha and my cousin and several others are part of, that you don't want to be a part of, but it's the Widowers Club. So, it takes a while to get your bearing and move forward in what, you have to figure out what the Lord is exactly wanting from you from that point on. But he's with his brother tonight. I think this is the last day his brother's going to be here, and then they're going to head back to where he lives, which I guess they have to fly out of St. Louis. I don't know where he lives, but he's been fortunately around this week. So he said, I let him know. I called him up tonight. I said, it's Thursday. And he goes, I know. But he said he hopefully will be back here next Thursday night. So again,
his brother is very interesting to talk to. He was a captain of a Navy vessel during an interesting time to be in the Navy. During the in the 60s and the 70s, and that's and he's just. He's got. I'd like to sit down and just pick his brain.
Yeah.
Sometime. So
I know there was a gentleman that was friends with Rabbi and Martha up in Connecticut, a guy named Ed Conrad.
Yeah.
He was into building naval vessels, wasn't he?
Right.
So
and he was in the construction part of it, and he was also in intelligence because of that.
Yeah.
And when you got clearance like that, people tend to pick your brains, and he was interesting to talk to too.
Yeah.
So,
well, this past week, I'm just going through the things I'm thinking of. I happened to be awake. I don't know why I was awake that late, except that it was I was there, and when they made the announcement live that Senator Lindsey Graham had passed away. And there's been a lot of conspiracy talk since that time about that. And it seems that he had the same thing happen to him that happened to John Ritter and to Alan Thicke. Those are the two most known the guys in show business that had this same sort of thing of this aortic dissection. And I listened to several doctors and also Dr. Oz. He made a video about that and saying that it's just it's not something that when it happens it's easily survivable. So um, so it's important. And of course, I think they said even with if you're being watched by doctors and stuff, it's a lot of times not something that's it's not something that they can see. They can't see the condition of the aorta wall. So, um, you know, but prayers for Lindsey Graham's family. But
Well, that's what happened with me. I mean, I had an aneurysm. Now, the difference between an aneurysm and a dissection is the amount of blood that's being lost.
right.
I was having pressure, but if it got to a point to where the pressure built up,
Hmm.
I would have had a dissection as well. And they said, hey, we got to get this done. If the pressure does build up,
Hmm.
and you would have 6 minutes once it busts.
Hmm. And
So there you
unfortunately,
go.
yeah, unfortunately, I think that Lindsey Graham was in that same situation. There was no time.
Right.
So unfortunately,
And
but
he may have had a condition that he had all his life. He could have had an aneurysm. They never diagnosed it. I didn't get diagnosed until I was 57.
yeah, you would think though, being a United States senator, and I think there is requirements for them to be looked at, right? And and they have some of the best medical in the world
Mm-hmm.
for the members of the Senate.
Right.
So just don't know. Don't know if he brushed them off, if there were concerns. I mean, they said that most of this occurs with if you've got high blood pressure, so you need to get your blood pressure under control.
Right.
I don't know I don't know much about his medical history.
But the
So
problem is they don't do imaging a whole lot if they
no,
don't have to.
nope.
Because imaging over time, if you keep doing those, I mean, everything comes down to your liver and your kidney. That'll
Hmm.
mess you up.
Yep.
And, if they've got EKGs that, they can just regulate or take a look at how the heart is beating and see if there's any irregular heartbeats, that's what they're going to do. They're not
Mm-mm.
going to do anything out of the ordinary unless they hear or see something with labs out of the ordinary. There was no cancer. There was nothing like that. So,
Well, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if he had high blood pressure. I don't
yeah,
know
right,
that and people have to understand that you don't know unless you get your blood pressure checked, unless the doctors are checking you, you don't feel high blood pressure.
right.
It's not something it's something like, oh gosh, you're going to feel like, oh gosh, something's wrong. Not really.
No,
One of my favorite singers, Robert Palmer, he had high blood pressure. He knew it.
right,
He refused to do anything about it.
right.
That was his choice. And he died, relatively young in his 50s.
Yeah,
So, because he liked to smoke and he liked his particular type of whiskey,
yeah.
and he and he did not intend to change his lifestyle nor take high blood pressure meds. So, he made that choice. He didn't live very long. So, that's what happens. But like I said, I would think that somebody like the senator would have been under some of the best watchful medical care at the time. So, like I said, when it's your time, it's your time.
Mhm.
I did go to I couldn't go to Nancy's funeral this past week. That was on Tuesday, but because I got to go to the visitation, but then I had to go and have an exploratory root canal. So, it was exploratory in the fact that when I was, had my first visit with the doctor, he didn't know because of certain cracks in the tooth whether he could do it or not, because he couldn't tell and he couldn't see with what my other dentist had done. He couldn't tell the extent of the problem. And he said if it had gone way up underneath my gum line, couldn't have done the root canal. So that's why it was exploratory. So I had that. that went on. Then Wednesday, oh, horror of horrors, I had to take Smudge back to the vet. And so they wanted me to try to give him gabapentin to
Yeah.
calm him down.
Yeah.
And I have the marks of that bled for about a half an hour because I bleed easily. In fact, when I was doing yard work, I must have bumped myself. I don't even remember it, but big old bruise here. I just do that. So, but then
It's like a grape.
yeah, I just after I wrestled with Smudge and got a hold of him and got the rest of this gabapentin down him, he proceeded to go into my living room and spew it all over.
It's like, I'll fix you.
So, and so it's like this was like I said no, and so I told him at the vet, I pay you quite a bit of money, and you guys are the professionals. And so I said, if you want him to have gabapentin, then you're going to give it to him.
Yeah.
And we're going to redo these vet visits. We got to be a little smarter than the kitty.
Right.
Because I said, I don't have anybody to help me hold him down.
No.
And even when I had Chuck with me to help hold him down, he's a fighter.
Oh, yeah.
So anyways.
I remember.
Yeah.
I had a tussle with him once to do flea medicine, I think it was.
Yes.
And he
He'll take a chunk out of you.
That was the sound I got for about 5 minutes.
Mhm.
And, I was getting pictures from producer Deb of Kitty's T-shirts that says "Fluff around and find out."
Yes. Yep. And that's him. That's my boy. So I told him, I said, next time I'll bring him in and I can bring him in early and you guys can deal with him and then he can stay there and I'll come back later and get him.
Yeah.
Because this is, but yeah, his blood sugar is still high. So I've had to up his dose of insulin. So pray for my kitty cat that, we get this under control. Don't know why, because he was doing so good,
Yep.
but then all of a sudden, so I don't know if the food I fed him has changed, and I don't know if the insulin production has changed.
Right.
I actually had heard, especially during COVID and different things and the prices of things going up, that even human insulin, they were tampering with it.
Well, I wouldn't doubt it.
That that people were having problems because, and then they found out that the efficacy of the product was not there.
I mean, you just imagine taking, one or two of the smaller elements out of insulin and putting it in the COVID vaccine. That's a possibility.
But it was getting to be more expensive. So some of the people were saying, hey, the stuff that I think they had some of it tested, they said it was watered down.
Yep.
So I'm not going to accuse the company or anything of any, but I just, it's like something changed and I don't know what it was. So, and I wouldn't know how to test it to find out. So we're, like I said, pray for my buddy that my little fuzzy buddy that his pancreas and everything lines out and that we get back on track, because I hate having to give him the higher dose. He's very sensitive to the change. I think I noticed even in the past 24 hours, it's slowed him down a little bit. So it's we've got to be careful because we don't want him to go hypo.
Right.
His sugar can be really high and then it can take him really low with the higher doses. So, although when we started out giving it to him, I gave him 4 units.
Right.
And then it backed down to 2 and then it was like 3 and 2. And then, we were doing really well on 1 unit of insulin, and, twice a day. Not so much now. But anyway.
And stress has a lot to do with that too. So, what's going on in his life? Is he going to the vet a lot?
Yeah.
That could, that could spike your.
Yeah, poor buddy. So he's he doesn't like his world turned upside down at all. So if I'm going to encourage you to I don't know how many of you watched the Flashpoint program with host Gene Bailey. Now Gene Bailey was on He was not there this particular evening, but I would encourage you, if you can, go back and listen to the Friday, July 10th program. I believe they have fparmy.com. I believe they're posted on YouTube. And I can't remember the gentleman. I don't know if he's a senator or a congressman, but he was hosting in Gene Bailey's place, and he had some of his buddies on there, and they were talking about China and Iran.
Wow.
And it was quite enlightening. They were even talking about Charlie Kirk and calling him an American martyr.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they were, has America fallen so far that a martyr was required?
Well, that's a possibility. That's
And so
that sounds like a good show.
yeah, it's a very good show. So I encourage you, go back and listen to Flashpoint. I wanted to go back and get some comments out of it. I just haven't had time. There's been lots of stuff going on. So, but I encourage you to listen to that on Friday, July 10th. And like I said, you won't see Gene Bailey as the host. It's another gentleman, and I didn't even have time to go back and get his qualifications. One other thing, I watched Eric Stacklebeck from a program this week. Now, what happens to me is like I don't have time to watch, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I watch 2 or 3 shows back to back because I have them DVR.
Right.
I buzz through all of the ads, and and if there's a segment I'm like, I like this, but I don't have time to watch it, I buzz past it. So I don't remember which show, but he had some gentlemen on there talking about quantum computing. I think I talked several weeks back about how Glenn Beck's hair was on fire about quantum computing.
Yeah.
And these guys were explaining a little bit more about it. They said the way computers are now, that, we know, of course, about the ones and zeros, but they said computing now is done in a linear fashion. You've got lines of code, okay? Linear. I remember even the old computers that every once in a while you had to do a cleanup on them because, as it was explained to me, everything was lined up in the computer, and then as the computer functioned, it'd go out there and it needed a piece of this data and needed a piece of that data, and it came over here, and then when it didn't, it threw it over here, and then and it was like, so after a while your computer started to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it needed that piece again and it wasn't in the original place it was supposed to be, then it had to go around to find it, use it again. It took it longer. So every once in a while, you'd have to go in and I can't remember what they called it. It was like realigning your computer. It'd have to go, and then it would it'd put all its toys up, put them back where they were supposed to be. Then, it would function along good for a while until it started to slow down again. But anyway, that's the normal computer. So what happens now is most of our important information is what they call encrypted, right? Everything about us, we think we have an encrypted bank accounts, encrypted financial, everything's encrypted and behind walls and passwords and stuff. That's because linear computing, it takes a long time to go through. If somebody's trying to be nefarious and get your information, right now, in the way computers are set up, it takes a long time. And so in that long time, I think, people who are watching that sort of thing can find out, or it takes longer for them to get to your information. But quantum computing, a quantum computer does not operate in a linear fashion. Quantum computing takes things and puts it into blocks. Okay. So they no longer have to go through line by line and, the length of time that it takes to go through. It can all be done in this, when everything of these lines are put together in these blocks, boom, it's like lightning speed. What that means is everything that you thought was protected is now easily broken into because it's fast. And they can try, and it's really, really fast. And so So now it's like, okay, so what is the government? What are banks? What are institutions that have all your personal Medicare, any kind of insurance, anything. What are they going to do to guarantee that your information isn't harvested, that you're not busted into? So they had some guys on there that the website is called quantasure.com. These guys are working on being able to uh, invent encrypting for the quantum computer. Okay. So that, and that's, have no fear, somebody's on it. And that was the question, because everything in quantum computing is going to be going so lightning fast. It's going to be, I don't know how much harder, quantumly harder to keep things protected, because basically your data is just going to be out there.
Right.
It's just going to be easily. That was something else that somebody was saying, is that there are, I heard that today. They're talking about how, I don't know if that was on Laura Ingraham or where that was at. They were talking about the fact that all of our data is being harvested right now by big time companies that they're not going to need it. They didn't need it immediately, but it's going to be something. Again, this lines up with things of the mark of the beast and controlling and all that kind of stuff. There's a bunch of harvested data out there,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't going to be. They had it. It wasn't useful until this quantum computing has come along. Now all this harvested data is going to become useful. Again, now this is getting beyond my understanding of things, but we are in quite a change coming along. Now I don't, like I said, I don't know who all is working on this, but just be aware that we're going to make incredible leaps here in the computing world, and things are not going to be as they were.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how they're going to be, but they're not going to be as they were. And we know about these things talked about in the Bible, and didn't quite. I mean, the only thing that they hinted at was like the number of man was 666, which is,
Right.
in the Hebrew is the WWW,
Which stands for
right?
World Wide Web.
Right. So,
Vey.
yeah, keep your eyes open on things, but be aware that it's not going, and it's not just all about grok and asking AI questions. This is going to get to be quite technical behind the scenes, and quite scary, I think. But I mean, that's what I'm hearing, and I'm kind of trying to. When it was explained, it's like that was a little bit easier for me to understand when they explained the difference of how the computing was done, elementary, from lines to block data. I was like, oh, okay,
Yeah. I mean,
that's
it's the difference of going from MS-DOS to binary.
right.
I mean, MS-DOS, I mean, that's when it came in the 80s with the very first computers, but with Wozniak and Bill Gates and
Mhm.
and Bill Allen. And, I mean, it's revolutionary. It's
Mhm.
revolutionary. It
Yep.
really is.
Yep.
And I mean, basically, what Deb was saying a couple of weeks ago, which was what I was thinking of, everything that you have in your phone right now could be in a small computer chip.
Mhm.
And that's where they're getting the idea that they can replace things like your thought waves and your brain and
Mhm.
things like that.
Mhm.
And with that, I mean, it could not only control your brain, it could control your central nervous system. It could, they could put parts in to control your liver and your
Yeah, and that's
kidneys.
that's some of the stuff that
Yeah,
Elon wants to do.
right.
So,
And it could make us into androids really quick.
right.
So
Um, and I don't know if I'm not going to get right into that yet, but I was it, the thing was coming along to me, and maybe we'll talk about this later because I have a lot of headlines I'd like to get through here first. But we are what I call in a complacent mindset a lot.
we're fat, dumb, and happy.
Right. Because, and we are a bit, I don't know how to explain it other than the word jaded. We've, especially me and my generation, but even the following generations,
We're definitely past
but
spoiled.
we grew up, uh, my parents' generation and then my generation, we grew up with the fantastic in movies and television, the creation of out of the world type of things. Um, things that, it's not real, but they make it look real.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get to where, I mean, when I was little, I mean, The Wizard of Oz was amazing to me,
Yeah.
but when you get older, it has to be more and more fantastical things to impress you on the screen.
You went from Wizard of Oz to Star Wars.
Right. All of that. Jump through that.
Computer
So
graphics.
computer graphics and all. So we're kind of at a place where, oh, that's in the movies. Oh, that's on TV. Oh, that's on a computer. It's like it's almost like so when you go and you read something like Ezekiel 38 and 39, when you read Revelation, um, oh, that's just another movie. Oh, and so uh we get kind of complacent about things like that. And my thought was, it's like, what if we are sitting in the time right now that this is Ezekiel 38 and 39, that this is the beginning of Revelation. It's not a movie. It's not a fantasy thing. It's not a novel. It's not something there just to entertain us, you know. So what does that do to you if you find yourself, hey, we really are in this, you know, how does your mind handle that? Where does that put you? This is not a movie. This is not a book. This is not a novel. This is real. You know? It's just like people who have to deal with traumatic scenes. Maybe you come across a major car accident. Maybe a house catches on fire. Maybe something and you're really in it. You see it on television, all the time in movies and or not sitcoms, but television programs and things. But what if you're really in it? And that's the thing that I think we're going to have to become much more uh, conscious of. If we're really in this, then what does that mean that you should be doing? I should be doing? What does it do to us on a day-to-day basis? So anyway, maybe we can do a little bit of out of Amir's book because he went through and really the way he talked about some of the chapters in Revelation are very like, wow, you know, that's that's going to happen,
Right.
you know. So we better get ready for it.
And the more we get out there, the more we have to go. And actually, that was what Star Trek was kind of all about.
Mm-hmm.
Gene Roddenberry, the creator, he was an atheist, but he grew up in a Christian household. Bill Shatner, he was born a conservative Jew, and he remained a conservative Jew. He was from Montreal, born in Canada. Leonard Nimoy was born an Orthodox Jew. And they talked all the time. It's like, we got to bring this back to what it's really about. And they had a lot of religious symbolism, and they took it back to the Lord a lot of the time, and simply not because they thought it was the right thing to do. They knew people would like it.
Yeah. Yes.
People believed in God back then.
Right.
And it's like, that's why we've got to be the ones. We've got to preach it. We've got to spread it, and we got to give it to our young people.
Yep.
And that's the thing that's happened less and less over the generations. My mom and dad never went to church. They just said, do as I do, or do as I say, not as I do, and you're going to church.
Yeah.
That's not a very good example.
No, but
it's better than nothing. But when you've got 3 or 4 generations doing that, and all of a sudden the kids are like, well, my parents didn't go, I'm not going.
Right. And that's what we've got now. We've got behind the scenes. That's one of the things I'm going to say. When you look out over the landscape and you see all of this Democrat socialism up on the rise, and you have to understand that the people that are behind this surge, this is not something that's grassroots surging through the young people. If you see the videos of these online kids talking about this stuff, they're paid actors.
Well, of course.
They're reading a script because their minds are blank.
Yep.
They've talked about how AOC, somebody was running a audition.
Right.
To find somebody in that area to run against an incumbent, and she won the gig.
Right.
She could read the script well.
Right.
She was the actress that they picked out. She hasn't got a brain in her head. When they confront her to ask her questions, she's not good on her feet because she was picked out as an actress and put into that position. And then that's how she got where she is in Congress. So she's, we've got a bunch of those. Well, who's paying? She had a boyfriend. She's engaged to somebody now. I don't think she's in love with this guy because she was really into the guy that set her up in this. He was the one feeding her the lines.
Right.
Well, he did his job and left. He wasn't into her. He was hired to create her. Right. And once he got her created, he's out of there. He was a guy from India, I think. So this is what we've got going on. They're staging all of this production.
It's all PR.
It's all this production's being staged. Well, just like all of these riots and the BLM, it's all staged productions.
Yeah.
Well, we now understand or know more about that. China's behind this. Iran is behind this. They're the ones that are controlling this narrative.
Left-wing billionaires.
All this is going on. But I think that's what they talked a little bit about, this China-Iran thing. They're manipulating our media, and they're not just doing it here. It's not just here.
Right.
It's around the world. So this is, again, I believe what are you going to do when you find yourself sitting in the book of Revelation? When you start seeing what the prophets talked about, that we're beginning to see it come together. You're going to have to get very clear-headed, and you're going to have to be able to see when these things come in the media. What is this manipulation going on? You're being fed stuff to bend your mind about things. And this is why we're coming to you. We're trying to sort through all of this stuff as best we can and remain as clear-headed as possible. They can fool me sometimes. They can slip stories in there, but you have to become, that's why I said, and I've said, you get close to the Holy Spirit, He guides you. You got to know that Bible inside and out. You need to know these end time events. If you don't have a pastor who's preaching on this and teaching you, then you're going to have to teach yourself, and you're wasting your time at your congregation if they're not giving you the information you need.
Mm-hmm.
And, oh, we don't get into that politics. You better,
You have
because
to.
because politics is what's controlling your life, and not just on the national stage. They're coming into your schools. They're coming into your communities. And they're going to change things from the inside out unless you have a good idea about, oh, I didn't see that coming, but now I do. You're going to have to stand up and know these things yourself. So,
You got to treat this like it's a sport. Okay.
well,
You got to know who the players are.
mhm,
You got to know who, but just like a baseball player. Okay, so this baseball player over here, is he a good defensive player? Is he a good offensive player? Can he run well? How quick is he?
yeah,
In politics, it's how does he stand on the issues? And you can't just look at your party and judge
right,
him by whether he's a D or an R.
right.
There are just as many rhinos out there as there are Democrats.
Well, there's
And
yeah, and this Democrat socialist has come in and is trying to bulldoze their way in and to call themselves Democrats,
right.
and they're not.
And they've been doing that for a long
Yeah,
time.
and some of the Democrats are standing up and saying, "Look, we're going, you can have your views, but you're going to have to get out of the Democrat Party and start your own party." No, they don't want to do that. No, they want to go in there, and they're talking about now. We want to do away with the presidency. We want to do away with the Senate. We want to do away with the Congress. We want to do away with the Supreme Court. We want
Right.
to do away with all of that. Okay, this is their goal. They're not hiding it anymore.
Right. And the guy who was at the
So,
very ground floor of this passed himself off as a Christian with the middle name Hussein. And actually got a lot of people to say, well, he's a Christian.
mhm,
And I've actually had people tell me, Jim, I don't know how you can be a Christian and vote for Donald Trump. And I say, well, this coming from a person who voted for a Muslim twice.
mhm,
Because even though he says he's a Christian, does that really make him a Christian?
yeah,
When the next first lady comes along and says, I am not going into that building until it is consecrated of all the evil spirits. What evil spirits are you talking about? There are Muslim prayer rugs all throughout that White House.
mm,
From being told that you're a Christian when you're really not. There
mhm.
were members of that man's cabinet who were Muslim, and nobody knows it because they're just
Well,
they just have a blanket statement about their party. Republicans too. They just have a blanket statement about their party without knowing who the players are.
yeah. Well, that's the things that were hidden, because in the religion of Islam, they do not have a problem with lying. And whatever it is to advance Islam,
Takia.
it's the
Yeah.
taqiyya, they will do. So if they're going to lie to you, they'll tell you to your face, hey, the Nazis used scriptures against the Jews,
Right.
as they were going into the concentration camps,
Yeah.
to try to make them, believe that this was under Christian sanction.
Right. This is a Bible study we're
Yeah,
doing. We're not
right.
taking you to this isn't a gas chamber. This is a
No,
Bible
I mean
study.
they used these. I mean they tried to make the peace people think they were Christians. They weren't.
Right.
But they were doing the same thing. They were using Christianity as a disguise.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the Nazis,
Judaism. Yeah.
yeah, most of the Nazis, well, not the Nazis weren't trying to be Jews. They tried to use Christianity. They put scriptures above the doors, and things like that, and they were justifying what they were doing to the Jews by using scripture.
Okay.
So I mean they were so this is they were absolutely evil beyond evil.
Right.
But that's what Satan does. Think about the Garden of Eden. What did he do to Eve?
Right.
He used, what Lord had said it, didn't he?
Right.
And that's what they do. So this is
You
I've got
can't just know who the president is. You got
right.
to know who the senators are, the House of
Yeah,
Representatives. You got to know who the cabinet is. What do they do? What do they stand for?
right.
Because if you don't, that's where you get duped.
Mhm. So you have to um this is a thing that let me slip this in here before I let me see if I can find it quickly. Before it yeah, it went away on me. Uh before it gets too far away because there's a man on Facebook. His name is Offshine Emrani, and he's an internist and a cardiologist. And he defines himself as a mystic, a proud Jew, a Zionist, arts and antiques. I mean, he lists the whole thing up here, Bitcoin even. And he's out in LA. But it was, let me, if I can get through here, because I had it set up, but it went away on me. Okay, so this is what I found interesting in one of his statements. He said J.D. Vance just torpedoed himself on Joe Rogan and handed Marco Rubio the keys to 2028. VP Hillbilly Elegy sits down, looks Rogan in the eye, and says out loud that Israel is more effective than most at influencing the United States. He goes full tinfoil, accuses Israel of running secret campaigns to manipulate American opinion, drag out wars indefinitely, and sabotage peace deals. Even throws in Epstein Mossad vibes for extra spice. He says, Bro, you're the vice president, not a vast conspiracy guy. This is exactly why Vance is cooked. Too edgy for the normies, too erratic for the base, and now openly poking America's strongest ally in the eye while the world watches. Enter Marco Rubio, sharp, seasoned, steady, and actually knows how to win without lighting his own campaign on fire. Class act who gets foreign policy, keeps alliances strong, and doesn't sound like he's one Rogan episode away from a meltdown. Vance had his shot. He just fumbled it live on air. Rubio's the one who's going to be president, period. The contrast is brutal and hilarious for anyone watching Vance implode in real time. Sorry, not sorry. The future just got a lot brighter. Who else is seeing it? Now, evidently, J.D. Vance did go on Joe Rogan and
Yeah.
talk against Israel.
Yeah.
He's been of concern to me.
But he's been doing that for a while now.
Right.
Don
So,
Jr.'s been out there talking
yeah.
about anti-Israel.
So,
And so, we've got this new wave of Republicans coming up
right.
that are anti-Semitic.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not talking real loud right now,
No.
but it's going to happen.
And so this is the thing, like I keep saying, what if we are in Ezekiel 38:39? What if this is it?
Possibility.
Okay?
Yeah.
These are the things that are beginning to pop up. We see the the uh, uh, the turning away, the United States no longer being the consistent ally to Israel. That possibility seems very real, just an election away.
Mm-hmm.
If people are all in for J.D. Vance. So, because he's not going to be a friend to Israel. We'll see how it goes. And of course, this is the big thing they keep saying. Well, you can criticize the government of Israel and not be, anti-Semitic.
On certain subjects, possibly.
Possibly, but that's not the drift that I'm getting here.
Mm-hmm.
They go all out. And I have an article here about how they're trying to accuse Israel of genocide.
Yeah. If you want to talk about their Supreme Court wanting to take over the government of Israel, you can say that and not be anti-Semitic.
Right. They're
but if you just want to go say, well, Jews are taking up all the money in this world and blah blah blah, that is anti-Semitic.
Yes, it is. So anyway, I'm going to jump into some of the headlines here and go through this. If you want to see the president, he's probably talking right now. It's a little bit after 8, so I understand. But I'm going to jump into headlines here, and then we'll see what we can do for this next hour. Trump expected to expand Iran military campaign as Tehran warns of broader retaliation. This is by Amichai Stein. I think this is from the Jerusalem Post. It says the Trump administration is expected to broaden the scope of its military campaign against Iran, according to 2 sources familiar with the matter. I'm sure that that's what the president is going to be speaking about this evening.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they have any play-by-play online there about what Trump is going to talk about, but you might want to see if somebody's kind of covering that subject. According to 2 sources familiar with the matter, the anticipated expansion would include both a wider range of strikes and an expanded list of targets. However, officials cautioned that it remains unclear when the next phase of the operation will begin or what level of increased military activity U.S. President Donald Trump will ultimately authorize. At the same time, Iran has publicly warned that it will escalate its missile attacks if Washington intensifies its military campaign. If President Donald Trump carries out his threat to hit Iranian infrastructure, then Iran will destroy all infrastructure throughout the region, an Iranian military spokesperson said on Thursday. So it's kind of interesting that they make these statements. It's like, what kind of stockpile does Iran have? Interesting. It says an Israeli official told the Jerusalem Post that Tehran is likely to continue refraining from launching attacks against Israel as long as the United States does not significantly escalate its campaign. Israeli officials believe the Iranian leadership is seeking to avoid opening another front with Israel while calibrating its response to U.S. military action. However, they cautioned that any expansion of the American operation could prompt Iran to reconsider its current restraint. We have bombed the heck and bombed the heck and bombed the heck out of everything.
In
And
fact, that's what
they
Trump's talking about right now.
and so,
It's address.
but they keep coming with things. They keep launching against the UAE and Bahrain and all of that stuff
Yeah.
over Qatar. They keep it coming.
Oh yeah.
So
And the reason they keep it coming is because stockpiles in China and Russia are giving them.
mhm.
And if they're still giving them, that
Yes.
means that if Trump's cut off the Strait of Hormuz and there's no money going into Iran, they're just giving it to them as a debt. So we'll see how that pans out later on.
Yeah, and as from Breitbart News, Ian Hatchett has written a thing here. It says former Trump counter-terror official, uh, what he had said on Fox News Channel America Reports. Ambassador Nathan Sales, he has served as coordinator for counterterrorism during the first Trump administration, said that any deal that we, I guess the United States, makes with the Iranians, we're going to have to give something up to get. 1. 2, they're going to cheat and steal and lie, and a deal with Iran on the nuclear program may not be needed. So he says here, so first of all, what we have seen over the past week is that President Trump finally lost his patience with the Iranian cheating and lying.
Oh, yeah.
And so we've gone back to a policy of maximum pressure, military pressure, but also economic pressure. And what we've heard from administration officials is this is going to put us in a better position to achieve a deal on the nuclear program. He continued, but I actually want to think about pumping the brakes on that. We may not need a deal on the nuclear program. We may be able to accomplish our strategic objectives unilaterally. Any deal that we make with the Iranians, we're going to have to give something up to get. 1. And 2, they're going to cheat and steal and lie. And we've seen that over the past month. And 3, we have eyes on all of these nuclear facilities 24 hours a day.
Mhm.
If they so much as move towards them, we can take action. So my hope is that the administration rethinks whether a deal is actually good for us or whether we can accomplish our goals unilaterally.
Mm-hmm.
An interesting way to think of that. And meanwhile, Iran, these people who Trump says want such a deal, they you can't see that, but they say that Iran has put Trump in a coffin on a huge billboard in Tehran.
Okay.
So it says here the Iranian regime on Wednesday unveiled a massive billboard in Tehran curved around the side of a building that depicts President Trump lying dead in a coffin.
Mm-hmm.
Trump's image on the billboard is disheveled and bloated, with straight, rigid legs and feet pointing straight up, suggesting rigor mortis has set in. The billboard is also scrawled with graffiti style messages, mostly written in Farsi, although "We Kill Trump" is clearly visible in English. The blackboard area of the billboard appears to be a homage to the billboard upon which farewell messages to the late Ayatollah Ali Khamenei were scrawled during his funeral last week. Another message on the billboard said, "In memory of Minab's children," a reference to the Iranian city where a U.S. airstrike on February 28th is believed to have struck an elementary school. These death threats loom over Islamic Revolutionary Square, also known as Enqalab Square, which is one of the busiest intersections in the capital of city of Tehran. The regime often uses the square to stage rallies and demonstrations recently, including the early stages of the week-long funeral for Khomeini. Well, it looks like somebody needs to, blow up that sign.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm sure they will at some point.
Just put a little.
That just became a target.
Yeah.
It's,
So,
I mean, and you don't need anything big. It's just
yeah.
use a drone and
Yeah, take it out.
Yeah.
It says here the Khomeini funeral included both official state pronouncement and spontaneous eruptions from the crowd calling for Trump's murder. Oh, I'm sure it was spontaneous. The just like everything is spontaneous here in this country. Oh,
yeah, sure.
The procession was festooned with banners and signs demanding the death of Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Trump was hanged in effigy, and the demonstrators chanted, "We don't want a deal. We want Trump dead." Oh,
Well,
so here we go.
Yeah, I mean, it's
So
they're
it
saying it
says,
right there, aren't they?
then they say, "Why is the most bastard man in the world still alive? The world is no longer a good place for Trump. Why should we not kill the man who killed our imam? If it would be a disgrace if we did not." Iranian poet Mohammad Rasuli said during a government-approved speech at the funeral last Monday. Oh boy. A statue of Khomeini was erected in Enqalab Square, not far from where the Trump coffin billboard is located. Oh, good, it's not far.
Yeah.
So when we take out the billboard,
yeah.
we can take that out too.
Yeah.
So, that's there you go.
We got plenty of drones, folks. Yeah.
So if you thought that these now this is not the average person in Iran. This is their diehards. I don't know percentage of the Iranian people are bent on this. I don't know. I do know that there's a huge part of the Iranian people who, I mean, they marched and they died for marching. They were shot, killed, maimed, everything else for standing up against this regime. So, but we do know what the diehards, what they actually are saying. So, if you go against God's anointed,
Yeah.
they've already taken out a bunch of them. We can take out more. And it also says that Prime Minister Netanyahu has canceled his planned trip to the United States next week, with diplomatic sources indicating that the decision was driven by more than scheduling considerations. The Prime Minister's office said the postponement was due to changes surrounding the funeral of Senator Lindsey Graham. However, information obtained by I-24 News indicates that the scheduling issue was only part of the reason behind the decision. According to sources familiar with the matter, intensive efforts were made in recent days to arrange a meeting between Netanyahu and U.S. President Trump during the visit. Those efforts ultimately failed, with no date finalized for a meeting and no preliminary understandings reached regarding its agenda or expected outcomes, preparatory steps that are typically completed before a summit between national leaders. Collapse of a proposed U.S.-Iran memorandum of understanding. At the same time, tensions have grown within the Trump administration over its approach to Iran. Those strains were highlighted by Vice President J.D. Vance's recent criticism of what he described as Israeli attempts to influence the administration's policy on the issue. A source familiar with the discussions told I-24 News these developments also factored into the decision to cancel the visit. Right now, Netanyahu isn't interested in a White House photo op, the source said. It's simply not the right timing. So JD must be getting in here and stirring up trouble.
Possibility.
The cancellation comes at a sensitive moment in U.S.-Israel relations as both governments continue to navigate disagreements over Iran while while maintaining close strategic ties, with the United States. There was one other thing that I haven't heard too many people talk about, and this came out on Newsmax back on July 14th, Tuesday, July 14th. It says here that President Donald Trump informed Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that he should begin redeploying Israeli forces from Syria and encouraged similar withdrawals from the southern Lebanon during a phone call last week, according to the U.S. and Israeli officials. Now, this happened right after he met with his Iraqi guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, it says a U.S. official told Axios Trump warned that Israel's military presence in Syria was fueling tensions and risking a broader conflict. They don't want you there. You should redeploy, Trump told Netanyahu. According to the U.S. official who said Trump delivered the same message regarding Lebanon. Now, I mean, I'm not going along with this, but this is what Trump has said. Says the prime minister's office confirmed Netanyahu emphasized Israel's security concerns during the conversation, saying the prime minister, on his part, raised the need for security zones along Israel's borders. The call came a day after Trump met Syrian President Ahmad al-Shara on the sidelines of the NATO summit in Turkey as the administration continues pushing for regional de-escalation. Officials have sought an agreement that would include a gradual Israeli withdrawal from the territory occupied in southern Syria following the collapse of the Assad regime in late 2024, but they believe Netanyahu has resisted those concessions, as he should. And who's pushing all of this?
Mm-hmm.
Erdogan.
Yeah.
Okay. The administration is also pressing for implementation of a recently signed Israeli-Lebanon framework agreement. Under the deal, Israel committed to withdraw from 2 pilot zones in southern Lebanon, although Israeli forces have not yet redeployed. Israeli officials say they first want to verify the areas are free of Hezbollah weapons and infrastructure, while Lebanese officials argue U.S. forces should make that determination.
Mm-hmm.
The White House declined to comment on the reported conversation and did not dispute the account. A U.S. official told Axios President Trump has a strong relationship with Prime Minister Netanyahu, and Israel has always been a great ally to the United States. There has been no greater friend to Israel and a fighter for peace than President Trump. And Netanyahu faces elections in about 3 months, making major territorial concessions politically difficult as members of his governing coalition continue to advocate long-term Israeli control over parts of southern Lebanon and southern Syria. So I haven't really heard them talk about that much in the press about that particular phone call. And I think that's kind of one of the reasons that he also is not going to come over, is because I don't think there's any they're not meeting any kind of common ground on that. So Netanyahu is going to say, I'm not pulling out of those territories.
Right.
Then we have a request for the Department of Justice to investigate New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani's administration for potential violations of the Logan Act, and it's been filed by House Republicans led by Representative Addison McDowell, Republican from North Carolina. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche received the letter on Thursday morning after it was revealed that a senior Mamdani official attempted to organize an unauthorized meeting with a high-ranking member of the Iranian regime while the country remains at war with the United States.
Right.
Can we say traitorism?
Oh, yeah. Send them to Iran.
The other lawmakers who signed on to the letter are Reps Lauren Boebert, Earl Carter, I'm not going to name off where they're from, Pat Fallon, Randy Fine, Clay Fuller, Pat Harrington, Wesley Hunt, Anna Paulina Luna, Richard McCormick, Max Miller, Riley Moore, Pete Sessions, and Claudia Tenney.
Okay.
We write with concern about the recent actions of Mayor Zoran Mamdani's administration, McDowell wrote. Last week, media outlets began to report Commissioner Anna Maria Archila, I don't know how they say it, the head of New York City's mayor's office for International Affairs has scheduled a July 7th meeting with the Islamic Republic of Iran's ambassador to the United Nations, Amir Sassid Aravani. At this point, why don't we round up all those Iranians at the United Nations and send them back to Iran?
We should while we're in New York, just round them up from Times Square too.
Yeah.
You know,
Arkila and the two other senior officials from Mamdani's International Affairs office were set to meet with our Aravani on July 7th at 11 a.m. And that's according to screenshots of a calendar invitation obtained by City Journal. The outlets confirmed with sources connected to the international affairs community and Arkila's office that the meeting was set. I mean, don't you find it interesting? New York City is one city
right
in this nation. Mamdani is a mayor of a city.
Mm-hmm.
What is he acting with international countries about, especially countries we're at war with?
How can we take over?
I mean, he's a mayor of a city. Why don't you get your garbage picked up first?
Right.
Why don't you do something about the homeless people on the streets? You're worried about Iran? That ain't you're out of your lane.
Yeah.
So anyway, but this is what's going on. Every one of these people that have, like in this Democrat socialist thing, they're not talking about local stuff.
Right.
No, we want to do away with. They're getting involved with the Free Palestine and all, and all of these international things. It's like you're running for a public office in a city or a town or a state. Right. What are you talking about? Like you're running against Trump. Mm-hmm. You're not running for president of the United States or any big office like that, but yet that's what they're focused on.
Right.
But these are local politicians. So when you say, well, these people, they're getting involved in these little local politics, it doesn't mean much. No.
It means everything. It means everything.
And it's not just New York. I mean, New York is a huge city, right? A huge international city. It's the biggest. But there's people in Seattle, Washington. There's people, where all these other cities doing the same thing.
Yep. And they've already taken over. They've already taken over much of Detroit,
right,
and Minneapolis.
And they get these little political offices, and it's like, now I'm going to take on Trump.
And what happens when you get them taken over? Look at Minneapolis. They were scamming the government out of money, the U.S. government, and sending it back to their home country of Somalia. All the same time, Rashida Tlaib was saying, "Oh, I pledge allegiance to my people of Somalia." Mm-hmm. Now, what are they going to do about her?
Yeah.
Probably nothing.
Nothing. Because
what are they going to do about Mamdani? Probably nothing.
Because unfortunately, one of the few people that would stand up and put his neck on the line was Lindsey Graham.
Well, this is true.
And there's not really too many else in politics in that austere body that does anything like that. In fact, they hide behind the scenes like Mitch McConnell.
Right. And it's gonna come down to what it always does. It'll probably be us. It'll just be us, and it'll be just like Gaza on a bigger scale.
So the House Republicans went on to ask the DOJ to investigate the socialist mayor's office for potential violations of the Logan Act, which prohibits American citizens from holding unauthorized negotiations with foreign governments in disputes involving the United States. What's the ketchup guy? Does that ring
John Kerry?
John Kerry, does that ring a bell?
Yeah, his son-in-law is Iranian.
He was going behind the scenes trying to negotiate things as a private citizen.
And he should have been tried and brought up for sedition, at least, if not traitorism.
Yep.
And the same thing with Valerie Jarrett. Who is Valerie Jarrett? This is one of the players that you should know.
Yep.
She is the former chief of staff and probably still is the chief of staff in a smaller capacity of Barack Hussein Obama. Mm-hmm. The Muslim that I was telling you about earlier.
Yeah. So, and what was the other one? That Rice woman,
Susan Rice.
Susan Rice.
Yes.
Yeah,
And there's also Jay Johnson, who was the head of Homeland Security. He was also a Muslim. They were all through that White House, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Mayor Mamdani's and Commissioner Arkilla's actions create a clear conflict of interest with the United States, strategic military actions in Iran and across the Middle East, warranting further examination by the department, the letter argued. Yeah, it's going on saying what was in the letter. Mamdani himself claimed at an unrelated press conference that the proposed meeting was a result of a request that came into the mayor's office for international affairs, not one that originated from the office. Yeah, he backpedaled real quick. He was trying to say he didn't know anything about it, you know.
Yeah.
And he says he added that his administration is now working on an updated protocol for managing meeting requests. They always have an answer, don't they? An alibi, a workaround, a wheedle out, you know. And it says here, Arkilla is a progressive activist who was previously the subject of Breitbart News coverage after she accosted then Senator Jeff Flake, Republican from Arizona, in an elevator about his support for Brett Kavanaugh becoming a Supreme Court justice.
Mm-hmm.
I think I remember that video. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez brought Arkilla as her guest to President Trump's 2019 State of the Union address after her stunt with Flake. Before being appointed to the Mamdani administration in February, Arkilla did not have significant experience in international affairs. Instead, she had made a name for herself as co-executive director at the Soros-funded Center for Popular Democracy.
Mm-hmm.
We get back to that, don't we? She also previously served as co-director of the left-leaning Working Families Party and co-founded and led progressive organizations such as Make the Road New York. They have these like little generic names, right? You know, but they're all socialist activist groups they're coming along, and they're trying to undermine everything. It says here too, had come out. It says President Donald Trump announced on Wednesday that Dina Karari, an American citizen held in Iraq since 2024, has been released. Iran has allowed an American citizen who was wrongfully detained in December of 2024 under the presidency of sleepy Joe Biden to leave the country. She is now safely outside of Iran and is in good condition. And he wrote that on Truth Social. The United States of America appreciates this gesture of goodwill by Iran. And it says here, human rights lawyer Jared Genzer, who has been nicknamed the Extractor for his work on behalf of political prisoners around the world, identified the freed detainee as one of his clients. This would not have happened but for the extraordinary and relentless efforts of President Donald Trump, and mentioning that she's safe. I think that it says here she reportedly suffered a heart attack on July 8th, adding to the urgency of her case. So, but she was. It says here that she tried to return home after visiting family in Shiraz, Iran, when both her American and Iranian passports were inexplicably seized at the airport. He believes she was targeted for her work with the Children of Meir Foundation, which the regime in Tehran evidently viewed as a subversive organization. And she was slapped with a coercive exit ban and was hauled in for interrogation dozens of times over in the ensuing year and a half due to vague allegations of espionage, but she was never formally tried. No, they don't do that. They don't respect the law.
No,
they're just, if you're over in the Middle East, I mean, that's why you're guarded so closely in Israel. When you're taken to places by the tour guides, they know exactly what's going on because there's no more valuable commodity to these places than an American. If you go over there on your own and you get into the Arab territories, the Muslim territories, you're a kidnap. They want to kidnap you and take you and hold you as hostage because you become quite a bit of good collateral for them.
Oh yeah.
And so you have to be very, very very, very cognizant of this. And I'm shocked that she ever thought that she could go to Iran and get out alive, really, because I just don't know that anybody could do that. But I'm glad she's on her way back. From what I understand, there are 6 more Americans over in Iran right now being held hostage over there. So, but here's another thing, and I haven't heard too much about this, but this Ro Khanna, this is an opinion poll by Jonathan, an opinion piece by Jonathan S. Tobin. And this guy has, I mean, he's a piece of work, this Ro Khanna. He's a California congressman. And the congressman's Judean misadventure was an attempt to boost his long shot presidential hopes and move on from his sponsorship of the disastrous Graham Plattner. So this guy was all in for Graham Plattner, right? And it says there was a time not so long ago when presidential aspirants from both major parties visited Israel to boost their campaigns. They still do so now, but for different reasons, as the recent misadventure of Representative Ro Khanna illustrated. He's from California. In the past, American politicians traveled to Israel to make clear their solidarity with the Jewish state and its American supporters. They understood that this demographic was composed not merely of the vast majority of American Jews, but also of tens of millions of American Christians. Such visits were not merely ways to boost fundraising, they were an effort to demonstrate that the candidate was someone who appreciated that Israel was the sole democratic ally the United States had in the Middle East, as well as a place that deserved that the admiration of the world for its tremendous achievements in the face of implacable hostility rooted in Jew hatred. Today, they go there to virtue signal their solidarity with that same hatred. That anti-Israel virtue signaling, that's something many American Israelis and American Jews, I'm sorry, that's something that many Israelis and American Jews struggle to understand. Try as they might to see Khanna's visit or the previous one by veteran politician Rahm Emanuel in the context of Israeli politics and disputes about who should be running the Jewish state and policies it ought to pursue, including those regarding violent settlers in Judea and Samaria, quote unquote, violent settlers. 3 episodes are about something very different. These episodes are about something very different. They are a way to connect with the left wing base of the Democrat Party. Now they're selling out to these socialists and other Americans who've swallowed the idea that the struggle for global justice is inextricably linked to the Palestinian Arab war on Israel's existence, rather than continuing to litigate the dispute about whether or not, as Khanna falsely claimed, violent settlers threatened and illegally detained him, or as he also falsely claimed, the IDF and police aided those seeking to harm him. This is the stuff he's come out with. We need to understand that something else is going on here. It is the political context of the Khanna dust-up that is significant, not the specific facts of the case. Once one sorts through the congressman's disingenuous rhetoric and the credulous reporting about them in the mainstream media, however, it's clear that the congressman didn't tell the truth about what happened. Khanna went to Israel to show the world that he's against the Jewish state. The fact that he subsequently said that those who had explained his version of the incident were largely made up out of whole cloth were the same people who lied about genocide in Gaza tells you all you need to know about the story. Just as there's been no genocide in Gaza, there is no apartheid in Israel. Even some fellow Democrats who are not so invested in catering to the anti Zionist crowd have criticized him for such a publicity stunt.
You tell the lie often enough.
The short version of the Khanna confrontation is that, accompanied by anti Israel activists and some press people, the congressman journeyed into an area of Judea and Samaria that the IDF considers a closed military zone. He had chosen to coordinate his trip with the U.S. Embassy, had he chosen to coordinate his trip with the U.S. Embassy or the Israeli military or police, he likely would not have encountered any trouble. But since he did not, His tour guide was unable to ensure him ahead of time that there would be no issues. Jews who live in the area became suspicious and stopped him.
Mm-hmm.
Good for them.
Yeah,
One can
absolutely.
one can argue that they shouldn't have done so, but videos supplied by Khanna's entourage don't back up the assertion that settlers threatened or detained him, nor were they violent. They may have been armed, but all Jews living there are because of the ongoing hazard of Arab terrorism, which continues daily, even though it is rarely, if ever, reported in the press. It was only after this encounter that Khanna reached out to the embassy, and soon IDF soldiers arrived. When they arrived, not only did they not side with the supposedly violent settlers and acquiesce in Khanna's detainment, instead, they stayed in their vehicles and made the relevant calls to higher authorities and soon sent him on his way. It was an Israeli commentator, Haviv Ratik Gur, himself a loud critic of violent settlers, pointed out an irrelevance. Nothing happened, save for the fact that Khanna was delayed for a while. Well, you go into someplace that you don't have permission to go into, you might be delayed for a while.
But you might be there for a little while. Yeah.
And that was largely because while traveling in a foreign country in an area where violence is routine, not from Jews, but from local Arabs, he chose not to inform the authorities where he was or what he was doing. Why then did Khanna make a big deal about such a nothing burger? The answer is obvious. Outlets like the New York Times, CNN, and even some Israeli and Jewish media were willing to publicize the event as an instance of settler violence.
Mm-hmm.
Now, even before they knew the facts. For them, it fits into a narrative of Israeli bad behavior and they think defines the contemporary Jewish state. The liberal Times of Israel amplified Khanna's demand that the Jews who had asked what he was doing there should be punished, since they think it helps undermine Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his supporters,
Mm-hmm.
which is exactly what Ro Khanna wants to do.
Right.
For many inside Israel and the American Jewish community, this isn't about Khanna and his ambitions, but a chance to vent their anger and frustration concerning the hundreds of thousands of Jews who live in Judea and Samaria. After the Second Intifada from the years 2000 to 2005, Israel, under then Prime Minister Ariel Sharon, withdrew from the Gaza Strip in the summer of 2005. That move directly led to the transformation of the coastal enclave into a Hamas terrorist state in the summer of 2007. The tragedy of October 7th, 2023, was the result of that terrible decision. In light of the massacre of 1,200 people, and the kidnapping of 250 others that day, only a deluded radical fringe can go on advocating for a two-state solution. The goal of evicting Jews from the heart of their ancient homeland to create a Palestinian state that will bring peace between the two peoples is a fairy tale that in reality is a formula for more bloodshed. Exactly what they want, right?
Exactly.
It is now painfully obvious that Palestinian national identity is linked to the dream of eradicating Israel, not achieving self-determination. So all those who believed in this pretense are left with the demonization of the Jews who helped prevent their country from making the same mistake in Judea and Samaria that Sharon made in Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
Yet their narrative about violent settlers, which has been adopted even by liberal Americans who support Israel, is itself a calumny. As JNS has reported, more than 90% of incidents reported as settler violence are nothing of the kind. Most are ordinary acts of Jews merely living or worshiping over the so-called Green Line, such as visiting the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Every time a Jew defends themselves against Arab terror, it is considered an act of settler violence. And even incidents such as one I was told about during a recent visit to the same region Khanna was touring, which involved local Palestinian Arabs killing a sheepdog belonging to an Israeli farming family, have been falsely reported as Jews killing a Palestinian Arab-owned dog.
Okay.
Which is a fallacy because we know Muslims hate dogs.
This is true. Yeah.
How do you have a Palestinian Arab-owned dog?
They're trying to get rid of them in New York City.
Yes, they are. Neither Khanna or those who cheered his antics in the media after he cried wolf about settler violence care about these facts or what happened when some Israelis had the temerity to ask him where he was going. The real context is what is happening in the Democrat Party. A political chameleon, he says here. Khanna, a native of Philadelphia and son of Indian immigrant parents, is, like many in his profession, something of a political chameleon. A lawyer, he served as a deputy assistant secretary of the United States Department of Commerce in the Obama administration. He was selected to Congress in 2016, where he continues to represent Silicon Valley. He describes himself as a pro-business progressive, a contradiction in terms, but something that has ingratiated him with the left-leaning oligarchs who run big tech. In 2022, he was part of a delegation of pro Israel members of Congress led by then House Speaker Representative Nancy Pelosi. But since October 7th, the views of the once marginal left wing squad, in the U.S. House of Representatives about Israel and anti Semitism have become mainstream discourse in the Democrat Party as well as in liberal media. Khanna is someone with national ambitions. He understands which way the wind is currently blowing in his party and has used his considerable sway with Democratic donors to invest in promoting some of the most prominent left wing anti Israel primary candidates, in addition to Democratic socialists who oppose the capitalism that produced Silicon Valley.
Mm-hmm.
He endorsed and campaigned with Abdul El Sayed, a Michigan Islamist who has portrayed a nonstop stream of anti Semitic invective demonizing the pro Israel lobby, AIPAC, into a real chance of winning the state's Democratic primary in August. There's another one,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Khanna was also one of those who was responsible for promoting the political fortunes of Graham Plattner, the Nazi tattooed Israeli basher who won the Democratic Senate primary in Maine. Khanna aided those seeking to deflect attention from scandals surrounding Plattner, including those involving sexual misconduct, but his efforts collapsed after a local woman he dated years ago, a liberal activist, stepped forward with an accusation of rape, which ultimately forced Plattner to withdraw from the race. As recriminations among Democrats about those who foisted Plattner on the party grew, Khanna knew that he needed to do something to change the conversation about his own role in that debacle. Oh, we can't let these people forget their backing of Plattner.
Mm-mm.
There was I wish I had gotten that screenshot from Fox News. They had all of the pictures of everybody up there that supported Plattner. It's like, ooh, I need that that graphic, and we just need to keep hammering that home. These people didn't believe the women.
Mm-mm.
These people backed this dude
Right.
because he had a D behind his name.
Yep.
It says here, I'm thinking they're saying Khanna may be a long shot for 2028 and is not yet making the cut in polls for the top 10 contenders for the Democratic presidential nomination, which is currently led by figures like former Vice President Kamala Harris and California Governor Gavin Newsom. Oh, heaven help us, right? But the congressman more than realizes that the party establishment that has dominated the president process over the past 3 election cycles is unlikely to fend off the progressives who backed socialist Bernie Sanders in 2016 and 2020, and so he naturally turned to an issue that unites the left as a way of refocusing attention on himself. And what's his name? Andy Bashir from Kentucky.
Yep.
He jumped out there and is what would you call he's lining himself up with the progressives and making excuses for them, and saying, oh, they're passionate, oh, they're just using they're passionate in their arguments. It's like he's supposed to be like the normal
He's supposed to
Democrat. He's supposed to be the
middle of the
family
road,
man, middle of the road, and now he's backing the socialists.
Yeah.
Seen from that perspective, it doesn't matter what that thoughtful observers know that he lied about what happened on his recent trip to Israel. This is talking about Ro Khanna here. He had been interested in learning more about the conflict, in addition to meeting Palestinians who support the war on the Jews, like the mayor of Hebron, who murdered 2 Americans then he might have met with Israelis from southern Israel who have been held hostage by Hamas, or those residents in the north who have been rendered homeless by Hezbollah attacks from Lebanon. His visit, however, was orchestrated to show support for the blood libels about genocide and apartheid. All it does is reinforce the determination of Hamas and other terror groups to keep fighting for Israel's destruction in the hope that someday America will turn on its longtime Middle East ally, Israel. Well, I'm going to say that if this guy's meeting with Hamas, then he is also treasonous act here, because they're at war with Iran right now.
Right.
And Hamas is a proxy of Iran. So what the heck are you over there meeting with leaders of Hamas for?
Right.
It's unlikely that Khanna cares about the way he is helping to perpetuate the conflict. All he wants is to create a narrative in which he can be singled out as the most active and most funded left winger around whom progressives can unite in 2028. Will he succeed? As one among many others on the left with similar ambitions, it's difficult to envision Khanna being his party's standard bearer in 2 years, but stranger things have happened. Still, his conduct should attract interest, not so much because of the dubious notion that he is presidential timber, but because he is not mistaken about what will help galvanize Democrats. As we've seen in primary after primary this year, hostility to Israel has become, alongside a belief in open borders and anger about ICE enforcing immigration laws, the organizing principle of Democratic politics in 2026. If there's one prediction that seems safe to make right now, it is that he won't be the only presidential candidate in 2 years who will try to weaponize anti-Zionism and hatred for Israel to smooth his path to the White House.
Okay.
Now you wonder why? You wonder why in the end time prophetic that the United States is not there, and it says that the entire world turns against Israel? We got these people that are selling their souls to Satan to get power. He wants to be president. So he's going to go meet with a Hamas leader. He's going to go and lie and cheat and steal whatever he can to pump himself up for him to get power.
What I've seen, over the last 5 to 10 years, and I've kind of floated this around, I see the United States breaking up similar to what the Soviets back in '89 when they tore down the wall in East Germany and they all became their own little countries. I see that possibly happening here.
I don't know. I mean, it's it could be.
And just because you're going to have your states that aren't going to allow the Muslims to take over. There's going to be a few.
Yeah. So, but continuing in the in this vein of anti-Semitism, the Church of England votes in favor of text calling Israel a colonial enterprise built on racism.
Mm-hmm.
The Church of England's General Synod on Monday voted overwhelmingly in favor of a motion to a Palestinian Christian text that describes the state of Israel as a colonial enterprise built on racism. The General Synod is the national assembly and legislative body of the Church of England. It is the only body alongside the UK Parliament empowered to pass national laws for England and is responsible for setting church budgets and shaping doctrine. On Sunday, it debated motion GS 2451A, standing in solidarity for a just peace in Israel and Palestine, brought by Carlisle Diocesan, I think, or Diocletian. No, it's Diocesan. This motion calls on the General Synod to respond prayerfully, theologically, and practically to the ongoing trauma in Israel and Palestine, and to stand in solidarity with Palestinian Christians and all who seek a just and lasting peace. You know the problem with that statement? There is no Palestine.
Right. It never has existed.
Israel and Palestine. There is no Palestine.
Right.
It's the state of Israel, period. It calls for the church to receive the Kairos Palestinian Declaration 2009, and the Cry for Hope 2020, the Call for Repentance 2023, and the Kairos Palestine 2 2025 as heartfelt expressions of the lived experience of Palestinian Christians. There is no freaking Palestine.
And there certainly aren't Palestinian Christians.
No. And it encourages the Church of England at all levels to engage with these documents. The motion calls for engagement with texts, but does not require agreement with every aspect. And it says, it is the Kairos 2 document that has attracted the most controversy. The 14-page document, also titled A Moment of Truth, Faith in a Time of Genocide, was drafted on November 14, 2025 by the Palestinian Christian Ecumenical Initiative. Now, I will say this. When I was taken into Bethlehem, the guy that guided us could have technically been called a Palestinian Christian.
Really?
He was an Arab and he wore a cross. He was not Muslim. So if they were calling that area Palestine, I mean, there are Arab Christians over there. We went to an active Arab Christian church. The Church of the Nativity over there is attended by Arabs.
But there's a difference to me between an Arab Christian and a Palestinian Christian.
Sure, there is. I'm just saying, when they say Palestinian Christian, there are Arabs over there who are Christian. And, and this is where the problem is, because they follow, they're Christians, but do they still have a grudge against Israel?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the guy that we were with, nice guy, took us on the tour, he was like, and he worships in those churches. Well, I can't remember which one because we went through, there's several that are there together that join, that make that whole compound there that's around the Church of the Nativity.
Right.
So, but anyway, so that there, but like I said, there is no such place as Palestine. There has never been a Palestinian state declared.
Nope.
So, but anyway.
It was all a Roman rouge.
Yeah, but I will tell you that there are Arabs over there who call themselves Christian. There are Arabs in Jerusalem who call themselves Christian. But they are decidedly, they do want a Palestinian state.
Right.
But they're not Muslim, but they're Arab. Okay. So it gets very complicated in Israel.
Well,
it's a complicated city over there, especially in Jerusalem. The whole thing is and it bears out in the Knesset.
Mm-hmm.
You see all the different, like, how do you keep any of that? These groups that get together, how do you keep any of that straight? Well, everybody has an idea about what they want.
It's easy to simplify. They didn't have the Palestinians, as we know them today, the ones that were started by Yasser Arafat from Egypt. Let's put it that way.
Muslims, yeah.
Those are just Muslims in that area.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know what a hospital, a police station, fire station. They didn't know what any of those was until Israel set it up for them. And then once they did, they started using them as human shields for whatever cause that they had in war they wanted to fight with Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't think they'd be able to know even the first thing about setting up their own country.
No.
Even if they had the chance.
Well, they're not interested in setting up a country. They're interested in killing Jews.
And Bill Clinton said so. I mean, he has said so lately. Right. He said we were going to give them so much of Israel, and they didn't want it because all they wanted to do was kill Jews. Yep. I mean, this isn't from a guy who is necessarily for the Israelis.
Yep. Many figures, including several participants of the Synod, decried the inflammatory language of Kairos 2, which unequivocally defines Israel's actions in Gaza as genocide, deems Israel a racist colonial endeavor, and expresses deep opposition towards the Abraham Accords. Again, this is the Church of England. And I'll jump down here. that's the point. It says this section 1.3 of this Kairos 2. Among other things, it refers to Israel's military actions in Gaza as a genocidal war, which is the continuation of the Zionist project to seize all of Palestine, emptied of its Palestinian people. It also denounces what it calls decades of apartheid, settler colonialism, political repression, Zionist racism, and arrogant Jewish supremacy. Ooh, ooh, that sounds a little bit anti-Semitic, don't you think?
Just a little,
So
just a tad.
So anyway, these are the words that they're using. Um, you know, that and like I said, the first problem with all of this is that they're talking about a Palestinian state and a Palestinian people. No. No, no, no. These people are just Muslims and they occupied and they're trying to take over. Anyway, ahead of the synod, the UK's chief rabbi, Ephraim Mirvis, warned the church against Kairos too. While it is important to recognize the suffering of Palestinian Christians, I wish he wouldn't call them Palestinian Christians, just call them,
Arab Christians.
Arab Christians.
Yeah.
This document does so in a way which can only harm the cause of peace, he said. It is truly shocking that a document that purports to speak in the name of truth contains so much falsehood, using extreme rhetoric to challenge the very concept of a Jewish state and to oppose existing peace agreements in the region. Mirvis said that the Kairos 2 risks undermining decades of careful Jewish-Christian relationship building. A spokesman for the Board of Deputies of British Jews said any church that wants a credible role in tackling prejudice here or advocating for peace in the Middle East should reject Kairos 2. And it says the synod ran out of time before the motion could be put to vote. It will return to the agenda at the next synod in November. The debate itself, however, showcased multiple conflicting perspectives. Clergy Stuart Fife of Carlisle, who brought the motion, encouraged the synod to listen to the voices of the Palestinian Christians. This is what the Palestinian church is saying to us, he declared. Kairos does not just describe their imminent extinction from the land of the Savior, a land where they have kept a consistent witness since the day of Pentecost. He said, adding that if the language is challenging, it is because it comes from a place of deep trauma. Well, that doesn't make it right.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then it says here the Archbishop of Canterbury, who just returned from a trip to the Holy Land, said Palestine, which the British government recognized last year, is disappearing. To hear the heartfelt expression of the lived experience of Palestinian Christians does not mean we agree with everything in these documents, she said. Yeah, right. Oh, well, it goes on and on. Be aware that the anti-Semitism is rife through the Church of England. We just, of course, I told you last week that the King of England has relinquished his title as Defender of the Faith.
Right.
And has become
a defender of all faiths.
A defender of all faiths.
Yes.
So he's basically relinquished his Christian role, essentially.
And Bonnie Olinger, she chimes in stating that she stayed with Arab Christians in Bethlehem for 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Ananya family 2,000-year-old homestead in Bethlehem, and they are called Byzantine Christians.
Byzantine? Okay. Yeah, the guy that was our tour guide, he just wanted to point out because he showed us his cross and he said, I'm a Christian, and he goes, there's many of us here in this part of the world that, Arabs that are Christians. So, but he didn't, Byzantine Christians. So, a lot of them were driven out of Bethlehem.
Yes, they were.
There was only one place there where they're selling Christian. Basically, you could go in and you could buy a shofar. You could buy the olive carved nativity sets and things like that. What am I trying to say? They want you to buy the souvenirs. I'm trying to say the word souvenirs and trinkets. Yeah. Yes. So, I blew the shofar in the store. So I'm taking dominion in Bethlehem. So anyway.
Yeah, baby.
Yep. So anyway, Uh, but that's what, yeah, it was a beautiful shofar too. Anyway, Knesset enshrines Torah study as foundational value. This is coming from Israel News. Um, the Knesset enshrines the Torah's foundational value in new basic law, reigniting decades-old draft battle. The Knesset voted 63 to 52 late Monday night to pass basic law, Torah study, granting Torah study quasi-constitutional status as the only value explicitly enshrined in one of Israel's 12 basic laws. The vote came after 10 hours of speeches and opposing filibustering, and it lands the country slowly back over military conscription that has simmered since the state's founding in 1948. The law states that Torah study is a foundational value in the heritage of the Jewish people and the state of Israel. Haredi coalition partners, United Torah Judaism, and the Shahs pushed it through as the centerpiece of a broader campaign to preserve blanket military exemptions for yeshiva students, a practice the High Court of Justice ruled illegal in 2024 for lacking a legal framework to sustain it. United Torah Judaism member of Knesset Moshe Gafni, who co-sponsored the bill, called Monday a historic step and said the law will serve as the state's moral compass by expressing recognition that Torah study is not merely the heritage of the past, but the foundation upon which rests the present and future of the Jewish people on their land. Shah's chairman, Ire Deri, declared it a historic achievement, adding that the Holy Torah will prevail. Opposition leader Yair Lapid called the timing in the Knesset's final week before October's election an utter desecration of God's name, telling the plenum that the coalition was spitting in the face of IDF soldiers. Member of Knesset Chili Troper noted that Israeli soldiers are fighting in Lebanon this week, even as the Knesset moved to shield draft evaders. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu skipped the vote entirely, prompting Yashar party chairman Gadi Eisenkot to call him a coward in a public statement. A day later, the Knesset passed a companion measure, the Defense Service Bill, Amendment number 28, by a vote of 58 to 54, temporarily barring arrests of yeshiva students who evade the draft through November 30th, 2026. The exemption dates to an oral agreement between David Ben-Gurion and Chazon Ish, a halalchic or a halalchic authority, Rabbi Avraham Yeshayahu Karalitz, shortly after the state's founding. At the time, roughly 400 yeshiva students received deferrals so that a devastated Torah world gutted by the Holocaust could be rebuilt. The arrangement was never legislated. It functioned for decades as a quiet administrative accommodation. The numbers grew from hundreds into the tens of thousands as Haredi society expanded. By 1998, the High Court had ruled the exemption illegal for the first time, finding that only the Knesset, not the defense minister, had authority to grant it. The Tal Law of 2002 attempted to codify a framework allowing continual deferrals. The court struck it down in 2012 as unconstitutional. Repeated legislative attempts followed throughout the 2010s and 2020s, each one collapsing under legal challenge or coalition politics. The stakes changed after Hamas's massacre in southern Israel on October 7th, 2023. Israel has fought on multiple fronts since, and the IDF has said it urgently needs 12,000 new recruits, while roughly 130,000 reservists remain on active duty. In 2024, the Supreme Court ruled unanimously that the government had no legal basis left to continue blanket exemptions and ordered yeshiva students conscripted. Basic law Torah study is a direct legislative response to that ruling, aimed at making it harder for the court to intervene again by anchoring the exemption's underlying rationale in the country's constitutional order. The debate raises a question the Bible itself addresses directly. Does a nation's obligation to defend itself fall on everyone, or can a portion of the people be set apart from it? Scripture answers plainly in the account of the tribes of Reuben and Gad, who asked Moses for land east of the Jordan River and proposed settling their families there while the rest of Israel crossed to conquer the land. Moses rebuked them sharply. Shall your brothers go to war, and shall you sit here? Numbers 32:6. Only after Reuben and Gad committed to the crossed armed before their brothers and fight until the Reuben and Gad committed to cross, and they were armed before their brothers and fight until the conquest was complete, did Moses permit the arrangement. The text is unambiguous that shared danger demands shared service, and that no tribe may claim the land while leaving its brothers to bleed for it. Jewish law sharpens this further in the case of the Milchemet Mitzvah, a war that Jewish law obligates the nation to fight, including a war of national defense. The Mishnah in Sota 8:7 states that in such a war, all go out, even a bridegroom from his chamber and a bride from her canopy. Maimonides, the Rambam, codifies this in Hilchot Melachem 7:4, ruling that in an obligatory war, no one is exempt, not even a groom in his wedding week. The deferments described elsewhere in the Bible for the fearful, the newly married, or the builder of an unfinished house apply only to a discretionary war. They do not apply once the nation faces an existential threat. Israel's current war, fought on multiple fronts since the Hamas massacre on October 7th, falls squarely within the category the sages defined as obligatory. And Torah study is not a point of contention. It is, even as the law's critics at the Israel Democracy Institute have acknowledged, a cornerstone of Jewish heritage worthy of support. The objection is to using that value to entrench a permanent exemption from the burden every other citizen carries. Fairness alone argues for enlistment. A state cannot ask one population to bury its sons while exempting another population of equal size and equal citizenship from the same risk. The 80,000 Haredi men currently of draft age but unenlisted are not a marginal group. They represent a growing share of the incoming cohort, while reservists from other sectors return to active duty for months at a time, year after year. Jewish law itself closes the gap between the study hall and the battlefield in a moment like this one. If the current conflict is a milka mitzvah, then the halakhic sources cited above do not merely permit yeshiva students to serve, they obligate it. So, and it goes on. But so that's the ongoing situation. They're trying everything in the world to keep their sons from going to war. This is interesting. From All Israel News, Israel prepares for the 2000th anniversary of Jesus's baptism in 2030. Expecting millions of Christian pilgrims. The baptismal site at the Jordan River is where they had taken this started. It says the foreign ministry announced Wednesday that it was preparing for the 2000th anniversary of Jesus' baptism in 2030, establishing a dedicated group headed by its special envoy to the Christian world, describing the anniversary as a milestone of profound spiritual significance for more than 2 billion Christians worldwide. Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar established a dedicated working group headed by Ambassador George Deek. In a post to X, the minister said Sa'ar established a working group to deepen dialogue with churches and Christian leaders worldwide and prepare for the arrival of millions of Christian pilgrims. The countdown to 2030 begins. Israel is launching preparations for the 2000th anniversary of the baptism of Jesus in the Jordan River, a milestone profound spiritual significance for more than 2 billion Christians worldwide. And that was according to Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar. While Israel's Jordan River site baptism sites attract thousands of Christians pilgrims each year, the initiative appears to mark a broader effort led by Ambassador George Deek, Israel's special envoy to the Christian world. At the same time, the move comes as neighboring Jordan has already begun a series of improvements and preparations for the 2030 anniversary on its side of the traditional baptism site. Earlier this year, King Abdullah II hosted a meeting of leaders from the Catholic and Orthodox churches, including Cardinal Pier Battista Pizzaballa and Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, at the site traditionally known as Al Magdas, or Bethany beyond the Jordan, which sits directly opposite the Israeli site, known today as Qasr al Yahud. At the meeting in May, King Abdullah announced that Jordan will support and oversee preparations for the 2030 Jubilee celebration, which will include infrastructure improvements and expanded services for pilgrims. Cardinal Pizzaballa spoke of the enduring significance of Jesus' baptism for Christians. The baptism of Christ is not merely a historical memory, but an eternal event that continues to speak to every believer. Pizzaballa said Jordanian authorities have insisted their infrastructure improvements will respect the sacred nature of the site. Samir Murad, who heads the nonprofit foundation established for the Jordanian government to oversee the project, told the BBC, "Let's remember this is the third holiest site in Christianity. This is the site where Jesus got his calling, and so it would be highly inappropriate, if you will, to corrupt it or violate it in any way. It is not yet clear what preparations the Israeli government is planning for the site on the western side of the Jordan River. The site has only been open for about 15 years. Qasr al-Yahud means castle of the Jews in Arabic, a likely reference to the site of the crossing of the Jordan River by Israelites, was only open for pilgrims in 2011 after an extensive demining effort by the Israeli government, which was later joined by the Halo Trust, an international demining organization. The mines have been placed during the conflict between Israel and Jordan during the 1967 Six-Day War. At the same time, the Israeli government is hoping that the significant anniversary of Jesus' baptism, expected to draw millions of Christian pilgrims to the region, will provide an opportunity to improve ties with the traditional Christian denominations, especially the Catholic and Orthodox churches. The appointment of Ambassador George Deek, Israel's special envoy to the Christian world, himself an Orthodox Christian, is one step in that direction. According to a press release from the Foreign Ministry, the working group will maintain an ongoing dialogue with churches, Christian communities, and religious leaders worldwide leading up to 2030. Sounds like it'd be a fun time to be there.
Yeah.
I may have to save some money up and see if I can go back over if we're all still here.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming down. I think I maybe can get through this one article. I'll maybe save this other one for next week, because we have the secrets of Hukok archaeology. So we'll keep that story, but we're getting close to needing to wrap things up here. Did you find out anything about what President Trump was talking about?
He was just talking about our successes and of what was going on in Iran, and what I don't think he really spilled the beans on anything new. So
yeah, I was wondering if he was going to talk about making they've talked about Karg Island over there, and that would be something that would really shut down Iran, Iran's ability. So I've heard different analysts say that it would require boots on the ground. And so I didn't know if he was going to try to make an appeal tonight to say, if need be, we're going to put boots on the ground to get Karg Island. I didn't know if he was going to try to go that far or not, but we shall see.
It was 5 minutes long.
Interesting.
So,
yeah, I'm interested. I didn't know why he felt the need to do that tonight, but that's interesting. Well, this is from the Jerusalem Post. It says, inside the tragic, decades-long mystery of Qumran's lost Second Temple incense. Okay, so this is going to take a little bit of time to read here. For nearly 4 decades, an extraordinary journey has been underway in the isolated Qumran caves, walking the fine line between archaeology and theology, and between the exact science and the search for holiness. Now, the Qumran, of course, is where they found the Dead Sea Scrolls. At its center is a single controversial and fascinating discovery: an estimated 600 kilograms of reddish-brown organic powder found in 1992 in a sealed cave near the Dead Sea, a find that has raised questions that have yet to be definitively answered. It says the man who led the search was Vandal Jones. And he, of course, was born in 1930 and lived to 2010. A theologian and Christian who adopted a convenient identity. Yes, he had the hat. He put the hat on just like Indiana Jones, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jones devoted his life to deciphering the Copper Scroll found at Qumran in 1952, which he believed contained a roadmap to the hidden treasures of the Second Temple. Jones was not an academic archaeologist in the classical sense, but in the field, he was considered exceptionally skilled and dedicated, and he believed that the scroll was not just a text, but an accurate geographical description, and he devoted years to studying the terrain and synchronizing the verses with the desert geology. In 1989, after years of Sisyphean work, the breakthrough came when a volunteer on the team, Del Griffin, discovered a hidden cave entrance in the area known as the Cave of the Twins. Excavations there in 1992 revealed a complex structure of channels, stone silos, and protective layers of clay, and beneath them, the red powder that has become the focus of global interest. The initial identification of the powder as temple incense, or the incense, was made by Dr. Marvin Entelman, a world renowned scientist and scholar. Entelman used advanced laboratory methods along with a comparison to the detailed formula that appears in the Talmud, or the Tractate of Cuts. He found that the material is organic, alkaline, and contains chemical components that match the components of incense. In 1994, Dr. Terry Hutter, an expert in palynology, the study of pollen grains, took the research a step further. Through microscopic examinations, he found the remains of plants such as saffron, cinnamon, frankincense, myrrh, and other plants that appear in the sources as ingredients of incense. The discovery that these plants were ground to such a high level of precision and were exceptionally well preserved in the cave's vacuum conditions added a layer of credibility to the team's claim. Jones' decision to hold a press conference on May 8, 1992, before an official report had been submitted to the antiquities authorities, was a negative turning point. The antiquities authorities, who had initially opposed Jones's methodology, reacted harshly. The excavation permit was revoked, and the finds were classified by some as ordinary soil. The conflict between Jones, who saw himself as uncovering historical and spiritual truth, and the academic establishment, which focused on the standards of documentation and oversight, became bitter and ongoing to the point of police intervention in 1995.
Okay.
The sad story of the finds lies in the failure to preserve them in an institutional setting. While the incense was considered a sacred artifact by the team, it was kept in makeshift containers in private homes and later in a shelter in the settlement of Ma'al Lavona. Without proper records and without continuous scientific supervision, large quantities of the material began to disappear. The tragedy reached its peak in May of 2025 with the murder of Sarah Richardson, the last custodian of the finds. Searches conducted after her death revealed that the vast majority of the material had been lost, probably after being evacuated during the evacuation of shelters during the war, without the workers knowing that it was an artifact of immense historical and religious value. The only remains left are a small amount of dust collected from the floor and a few samples preserved by the Jones family and his associates. Today, the Qumran project, led by Perry Antelman, aims to close the circle. Using the original laboratory samples and the small remains collected, the project plans a series of modern tests, from mass spectrometry to carbon-14 analysis, in order to definitively determine the age and exact composition of the material. In the world of archaeology, the debate over the Qumran incense remains a minefield of conflicting opinions. While critics point to a lack of proper documentation and the possibility of industrial remnants from the period, those who follow Jones's path see it as the most tangible evidence ever left of the temple service. Whether it is temple incense or not, The findings in the cave remain powerful evidence of the human yearning to bring back to the surface pieces of a distant past, which many see not only as history, but also promise for the future. This week, a new book about the project was published. The book about the story was made available for free download on the project's dedicated website. There were a number of reasons why we felt it was important to tell this story now, said Rhonda Attar, a member of the Qumran project and the book's editor. Many of the people who lived this story are getting older. And after Sarah Richardson, the last custodian of the remaining material, was murdered last year, there was a real sense of urgency. We understood that the history, the firsthand accounts, and the existing evidence had to be documented while we had the opportunity to do so properly. At the same time, we are moving forward with new scientific analysis of the remaining material, which makes it even more important that the historical background and the documented record are clear. We have chosen to make the book available for free because we believe that as many people as possible should know this story and have access to the historical record. If future scientific analysis supports what was originally claimed about the material discovered at Qumran, it could prove to be one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of our time. Now, I don't know that there was no link in this article to the Qumran project or their book. So, but I didn't know anything about Vendel Jones discovering temple incense. So,
I don't yeah.
so that's something new that I learned. But if you want to look into it, that was a story on the Jerusalem Post. So,
I was able to find a summary of President Trump's speech tonight. It says that he delivered a primetime address to the nation focusing on free and fair elections
oh, the Save
and
the Save Act.
announcing the declassification of intelligence detailing election infrastructure and vulnerabilities.
Aha.
Fox News carried the speech live.
Uh-huh.
Election infrastructure, Trump announced the declassification of critical intelligence gathered by a White House task force, claiming it exposes shocking vulnerabilities to the foreign interference and hacking during the 2020 election.
Uh-huh.
The address opened with the president touting the administration's economic record, stating that the country is safer, stronger, and wealthier than before. He briefly referenced issues regarding the border crime, lower drug prices, and military actions involving Iran, and talked about the Save America Act. It was heavily utilized to push for legislative and policy measures aimed at voter registration requirements and securing American election systems. While Fox News and Fox Broadcast Network aired the address live on traditional television, other major networks handled the primetime address differently.
Huh.
ABC opted not to preempt regularly scheduled programming, streaming the address on its digital platform, and aired a special report following its conclusion. NBC did not air the address live on its broadcast channel, choosing instead to stream it on NBC News Now. And CNN provided a live feed on its website and subscription streaming service rather than broadcasting it live on its cable channel. During the broadcast, Trump criticized the networks that declined to carry the speech on their main channels, accusing them of being part of a plot.
Yep.
Network executives expressed caution prior to the broadcast due to concerns regarding potentially partisan rhetoric or unproven election claims.
They're continuing to censor the president. This is the
Right.
president of the United States, and he has every right in the world.
Right.
And so they're doing everything they can to silence him. So there you go. Well, we now see that we see where we see where we stand, and this is part of that same thing that we're talking about is the people that are in control and the censorship of news and the censorship of trying to control a narrative that they want you to see.
Yep.
Not the news, not reporting to you what's actually happening, but trying to feed to you a story and make the way they want it to.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what we're going to be continuing to face, and it's going to be difficult as we keep going. Well, I think we have reached the end of this program. From what I understand, Benjamin Netanyahu was going to come here I believe on Saturdays, they said originally. He wanted to have a meeting with Donald Trump, and then he was going to stay for Lindsey Graham's funeral on Tuesday. From what I'm understanding, they're going to have a funeral on Tuesday. So, that will be the next thing. So we'll see how that all works out. But we're going to do our best to keep coming your way with the headlines and trying to sort all of this mess out, because as time goes along, it's just going to get even messier, I think. And we thank you for joining us this evening here on Rumble. Tomorrow evening will be Shabbat, the Shabbat service again. I can't believe a week has gone by. I just can't. Time is going so quickly. And
Yep.
so we will next week. It'll be, we'll be getting close to the end of July.
Mm-hmm.
We have well past the 250th July 4th celebration, and we're heading on through the last half of the year quickly. So until we see you again, join us tomorrow evening, 7 p.m. Central Time, and then we'll be back again. We're here live every Thursday evening, 7 p.m. Central. Until we see you again, shalom, everyone.
Shalom.